What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some film from Texas wide receiver and former five-star Jonte Cook. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver or a quarterback and would like to train with us this offseason, we are going to be traveling out to 5 more states across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. Next up on our camp tour, we are going to be coming out to Austin, Texas. That camp is completely sold out. But then we'll be heading out to Seattle, Washington, Newark, New Jersey, Denver, Colorado, and Los Angeles, California. So check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have members of our YouTube community out to our off-season camps. Let's get back to this video. So this first route that we're looking at here from Cook, Cook is one of the best route runners in the class. University of Texas is very lucky to have him. He's able to create separation like honestly no other, I feel, in this specific draft class out of anybody. I put him right up there with any 5-star recruit that you have. So this first release is going to be a great example of a release called a wide step release. So I'm going to play this full speed and then we'll break it down. So he's able to get a ton of separation off the line, runs a whip route, doesn't end up getting the ball, but still a great route and a great ability to create separation here. So let's talk about it. We're mainly going to focus on the release. So a wide step release is a great release to use versus a DB who's in head up press or a DB who's in outside shade press. What we were trying to do is we're essentially trying to get him to jump to the outside and make him think that we were doing a quick speed release to the outside or some kind of quick outside release. We're just getting outside right now. Now, the key to that is we have to be able to actually step outside of his frame to get him to move, but we also need to be doing this with some speed, but at the same time, selling the route with my upper half. A disciplined DB is going to be watching what in press. He is going to be watching our hips, so we have to be able to sell my movements off the line with my hips. I have to be able to gain ground. I have to be able to actually attack, but I have to sell. Now, the easy way that wide receivers can do that is by using something called a kick step. So a kick step is not a false step. A lot of people hate on the kick step. A lot of people say that, oh, it's a false step. Why not just go from a position where you're flat-footed and you don't have any extra movement? Because exactly that, you're flat-footed. You're not able to generate power and explosion. Now, if you're hesitant on the kick step, highly recommend you try it before you make any assumptions about it because it is a great way to load your hips so you can sell your releases with your hips. So you see how Cook right here, what does he do? You see how his back foot, he takes this like little punch step, right? Now, what that punch step does is that creates energy off the ball. I'm not talking about taking a slow punch step. Like if I'm not looking for your kick step, I shouldn't be able to see your kick step. That's how quickly it needs to be. But when he steps behind his front foot like this, that loads up his hips. So when he decides to step wide, he could actually bring his hip with his foot, giving him an explosive position, but also that helps him sell the movement more. Because so many wide receivers, like they know that they have to step outside of a DB's frame, but they'll step wide, but their hips and shoulders remain right down the midline. So when your hips and shoulders don't move, a DB ain't going to move. He's not looking at your feet, fellas. We have to step to the outside because that's what makes him think I'm going there. But a lot of people fail to mention that you should bring the hip with the step. Okay, so that's why we do that kick step. For speed, so it puts this DB on alert, like we're doing this quick fade to the outside, but also so I could bring my hips and shoulders. I'm in a balanced position to drive off of the cut, but also to sell the cut. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. This is a great example here of a wide step release from Cook, being able to get separation. Unfortunately, ran a whip right back into where he got the DB to move, but that is a great release. He's wide open on a slant. He's wide open on any route, in my opinion, with that release. All right, so next example here is going to be the route running IQ of Cook. So I think a lot of young wide receivers don't necessarily think about how they should run routes. I don't think they have a pre-snap plan. I don't think they walk up to the line knowing what a DB's responsibility is. And that's what I'm trying to change with all the content that we put out. I'm trying to teach you guys how to actually run routes. But again, don't get me wrong. You need to have skills. You need to have speed, athleticism, agility, quick cuts. You got to be strong, you got to have good hands, but you still have to have the IQ because at a certain point, that athleticism can only take you so far. Like where Cook's playing this year, University of Texas, he will be going up against DBs every single snap who are just as good, if not better athletes than him. So you cannot just solely rely on your athleticism because you are eventually going to come across a guy who is just as big and is just as fast as you. So how are you going to structure your route? So this is a great example of this. So he has to run this like quick 5-yard out and the DB is lined up inside shade press coverage. So let's watch what he does here. So he comes off the ball, he does something called the dive release, gets some separation and gives the quarterback space to throw him open. So let's talk about it, right? What a lot of young wide receivers do, and I know you're out there, that inside shade look, they'll just take off and go run. They're like, oh, well, he's inside shade, I have to go run a 5-yard out. That is exactly what the DB wants you to do. He wants you to just run away. Because remember, when he's inside shade, and this is why deep wide receivers need a pre-snap process and need to have a pre-snap plan. The first thing you should be looking at on a DB is his leverage. Where is he lined up leverage-wise? Is he inside leverage? Is he head up? Or is he outside leverage? Because that tells you everything you need to know about his type of coverage. Yes, DBs can disguise coverages. And press releases are just as much about having a plan as reaction too. Because if a DB jumps one way, we have to be able to react. That's part of the position. That's why, they equivalent point guards to wide receivers. Because point guards, what do? They react all the time. Defender moves one way, they react to the crossover and go the opposite way. That's sometimes what the wide receiver position is, but more often than not, it's strategic. So when we see that he's inside shade, we know that he's trying to prevent the inside route. He does not want me to run a slant, a drag, a dig, a post. He wants me to just take off and run to the outside so he can get hands and squeeze me to his help. Now you might be thinking, what help does he have? The sideline. The sideline is the 12th defender on the field. So what Cook does, he does something called a dive release. A dive release is where you dive to the inside, making it look like you're running a drag. You got to do this with speed. You got to commit your hips. You got to commit your shoulders. You got to run with stride, and that gets the DB to move. The best way to get a DB to move and press is threaten him where he doesn't want us to go. So he doesn't want us to go inside, right? So let's threaten him to the inside. Even if you have to run an inside breaking route, you should still be doing some kind of release to threaten his leverage. You will not force the inside release. You're going to have to take an outside release. And whether it's an outside breaking route or an inside breaking route, attacking his leverage, not only that, threatening his leverage is the best way to do it because that's what will get him to move, and that's what can give you room for the quarterback. You know how easy of a throw this is to the quarterback when you got all this room to the sideline? Like, I could throw this ball late and we could still win on this route because you took care of him off the line. Don't be afraid to attack leverage when you have an outside breaking route. Guys will even do this on a fade. They'll get this type of coverage on a fade, and they'll just take off and go run, and they get walled all the way to the sideline. They're throwing their hand up in the air like they're open. You're not open. You don't have any space for the quarterback to fade you, guys. You need to give him room on any type of outside breaking route. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by Cook attacking that leverage, getting that outside release, and winning on that out route. Okay, so now, next example here, we're going to be talking about how wide receivers can run a comeback route versus like an outside leverage zone coverage look. So anytime that you have a DB who's lined up outside leverage, like we talked about, whether he is in zone, because remember, you see this DB, his eyes are to the inside, right? Looking at the quarterback, he's squared up to the inside. That tells you that it's zone. Anytime that he has this type of look, he has two things. He has something called a blind spot, which is what we want to utilize, and he also has help to the inside. So when he's shaded a little bit to the outside, if your mindset is, okay, I'm just going to run up and go attack his blind spot, this DB is going to squeeze, keep his leverage, and when you end up breaking on that comeback, you will have no space. So what you would want to do is you would want to try to make it look like a fade the best you can. So when you have this outside shade look and zone and you have to run a fade, what would you do? You would attack him, you'd give him a hard fake inside, then you would slip to the blind spot. So you don't take away all of your space right away. So that's exactly what Cook does. This is textbook of how to run a comeback. So he comes out here, move inside, then slips to the blind spot, and again, gives the quarterback room to throw us open. Guys, we have to run quarterback-friendly routes. Because at the end of the day, like all these five-star type guys, all these high-level guys, what do they all get? They all get receptions, right? And to get receptions from a quarterback, you got to run friendly routes for that quarterback. You got to give him room to throw you open. You got to give him time, or you got to give him space, let's put it that way. And this is exactly how you do it. So many wide receivers would think, oh, I'm just going to go to the blind spot and then break. Good luck with that because he's going to squeeze you all the way to the sideline. You see how he closes the space. He gives this move inside, makes it look like a fade. So when he slips to that blind spot, maybe that gets that DB to speed, turn, open up. He's thinking vertical. Because number one, it looks the same. But two, we still have that space to run an out, run a comeback, etc. So again, it shows the route running IQ. He is an insane athlete, as we showed in the first example. But it's more than that. And you see, like, this is one of the top tier DBs in the country, fellas. I think he is also a 5-star as well. So when you're going up against another 5-star guy and you're a 5-star, dude, like he's going to be just as good of an athlete as you. He's going to be just as big, just as fast. You need something else to the tape to bring to the table to get open. You see a lot of these, 5-star guys, and we're going to show an example of this in a second, but you see a lot of these 5-star guys that on film, and some, not Cook, I don't think Cook, and not a lot of wide receivers, but you see a lot of guys, like, in states that maybe don't have the best competition, that they just run around dudes, and they're just bigger than guys. That's not going to fly at the next level. Like, that's why you hear about those guys falling off when they get to the next level of college, because it's like, it's not high school no more. You're not going up against guys who are 5'6" and run a 4.9 40, and you're 6'5", run a 4.6 40. Like, again, fellas, You need more than just size, speed, and quickness. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by Cook getting to that blind spot and then slipping out of this break. Okay, so now, a lot of people want to know where the 5-star rankings come from. Why are these receivers going D1 Power 5? Because there are so many wide receivers across the country that are good, that are fast, that can catch, that can run hard. There's so many. You got to think about states, right? Like, think about how big California is. Think about how big Texas is. Think about all these other states, right? Think about how many high schools there are. Think about how many divisions there are. And think about how many receivers are on each specific team. That's a lot of receivers. And I guarantee you a good amount of them want to play college football. It's one of the most competitive positions there is because not everybody plays college football, if I'm being honest, especially D1 ball. So what's the difference between these guys, the 5-star guys who go to the big schools, and the guys who don't end up going to the big schools? And it's plays like this. So this is, look at the situation. This is a state championship game, 6A football in Texas, the highest level of football you can play in Texas. And I want you to watch the type of play he makes. He catches a screen, takes, or maybe like a quick hitch, outruns a guy, takes this up the sideline and scores. He is making explosive plays in the biggest atmosphere possible. That is what college coaches look for on film. Now, listen, it certainly helps that he's playing the highest level of football in Texas, right? Like that's like equivalent of like a Mater Dei or a Bosco in California, right? Like they're the top tier. They are playing Division I talent every single week. So if you can start on one of those teams, chances are you're probably going to get some D1 attention. But at the end of the day, they still got to make plays. They still got to make explosive plays. They still got to have big highlights on their highlight tape. So let's say you're sitting there and you're a receiver and you want to play college football, and you live in like Iowa or something like that, where, it's not as heavily publicized. Maybe you're not Division I, you're like Division II. What can you do? These should be regular freaking plays for you, where you catch a hitch and take it up the sideline. You have to be dominant. But people need to understand, receivers have to be dominant. Because like I said, there are so many guys out there that are big and can run fast, can catch, can make explosive cuts, can run good routes even. How do you do it? The pads come on? Are you making explosive plays? Now, what are explosive plays? Breaking tackles, yards after the catch, explosive routes, making people miss, and big-time catches. Jump ball, catch in traffic, catch while you're getting hit. Those are the plays that stand out. And if you're in a smaller division, you have to be dominant. If you play 8-man football, you have to be dominant. If you play football in like Canada or overseas, you got to be dominant. Not everybody has the luxury of playing in a setting like this. And again, some people may not have the talent, or like the team that they're on may not be good enough to play in a setting like this, but you might be good enough. Listen, at the end of the day, college coach knows what he's looking for, and if he sees that you got it, you got it. But those are the types of plays that you need to have on your film. When all these 5-star guys, again, you know how to tell if a guy's a fraud or not if he's a 5-star, because you see a lot of frauds out there that get all these star rankings. They don't even have any film yet. Look at their tape. If he's a receiver, look at their tape. If it's just routine plays, I don't think he's that guy. But if it's plays like that, big, explosive plays, broken tackles, yards after the catch, that's the real guys. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. Always good to hear from you guys as usual. And again, fellas, we are coming out to 5 more states this offseason for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. So check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested, you guys. I'll see you next time.